They say every girl dreams of falling in love on a plane, but no one warns you what happens when the man whose shoulder you fall asleep on turns out to be the alpha king of Las Vegas. I wasn't just kissed by fate that night. I was shackled to it. One flight, one marriage, one bond one never asked for. I thought I could walk away from him, from his world, from the shadows that follow his name. But I was wrong, because once an alpha claims you, there's no turning back. And me, I'm about to find out whether being his Luna will save me or destroy me. Hello, family. Thank you for pressing play and joining me today. This isn't some sweet little love story where the poor girl meets her prince and they ride off into the sunset. No, this is a story about Ava, a girl who never asked for power, never wanted a crown, and definitely didn't plan on waking up in Vegas married to Damien, the ruthless alpha king. You'll feel every scar, every kiss, every betrayal in this story. You'll watch her fight the pack that hated her. You'll hear her stand toe-to-toe with the man everyone else fears, and you'll see what happens when a bond refuses to break, no matter how much blood is spilled. So grab your drink, settle in, and listen. And before we dive in, drop a comment below and tell where in the world you're listening from. I would love to know. Prologue. I wasn't running away. At least, that's what I kept telling myself. But when you buy a one-way ticket with the last of your savings, stuff your whole life into a second-hand duffel bag, and walk through the airport with no one bothering to call after you, you're not just traveling. You're escaping. My seat number glared up at me from the crumpled boarding pass, 17A. Window seat. Good. I could press myself against the glass and pretend the world on the other side didn't exist. The flight was packed. People wrestled with carry-ons, exchanged polite smiles that meant nothing, and avoided each other's eyes. I slipped down the aisle, clutching the strap of my bag, like it was the only thing holding me together. When I reached my row, I stopped breathing for a second. He was already there. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a dark jacket that looked expensive in the way rich men's clothes always did. Quietly, without trying. His hair was black, cut short at the sides, but longer on top, and his jaw looked like it could have been carved from stone. His presence filled the cramped space, and even though he didn't look at me, I felt it. For one stupid second, I considered turning around and asking the flight attendant for another seat. But then he glanced up. His eyes, cold, gray, sharp as blades, caught mine. My chest tightened, and I hated myself for the way my knees wanted to buckle. 17A, I muttered, holding up my ticket like proof I had a right to exist. He didn't move, didn't smile, just shifted slightly, making space for me to squeeze past him into my seat. Thanks, I said under my breath, though he hadn't actually done me any favors. The plane smelled like recycled air, cheap perfume, and tired bodies. But under all that, close enough to make my skin prickle, was him. A scent I couldn't place, something sharp, earthy, dangerous, like pine smoke after rain. It stuck in my head, refused to leave. I tried not to think about him, tried to focus on the safety instructions, the hum of the engine, the tiny screen on the back of the seat in front of me. But my eyes betrayed me. They kept sliding toward him, toward the way his hand rested loosely on his thigh, the way his chest rose and fell with steady control. He looked like the kind of man who never lost control. I didn't want to notice him. I had enough problems without adding strangers on airplanes to the list. But it was impossible not to. When the plane lifted into the air, my stomach dropped. I gripped the armrest harder than I meant to. His arm was right there, solid, unmoving. He didn't look at me, but I swear I felt him noticing. Hours stretched. The cabin lights dimmed, people shifted, babies cried, and the woman in front of me reclined her seat into my knees. I was exhausted. I hadn't really slept in days. My body begged me to shut down, but I kept fighting it, refusing to let myself be vulnerable in a space full of strangers. But eventually my head betrayed me too. It tilted, just a little. I told myself I was just resting against the seat, But somehow, in the quiet hours of that long flight, I slipped. My temple brushed against the stranger's shoulder. I jerked awake, horrified, but he didn't move, didn't push me off, didn't so much as twitch. Heat rushed to my cheeks. Sorry, I whispered. Nothing. Not even a nod. And maybe that was why I let myself stay there. Because for once, someone didn't ask me questions, didn't demand an explanation, didn't take advantage of my weakness. He just sat there, steady and silent, while my body betrayed me again. My head slipped back against him, heavier this time, and before I knew it, sleep swallowed me whole. I dreamed. I dreamed of shadows and wolves, of eyes like storm clouds watching me from the trees. I dreamed of running barefoot through the dark, chased by something I couldn't name. My chest burned, my legs gave out, and when I fell, strong arms caught me. I woke with a start, lips parting on a breathless sound. For a moment, I forgot where I was. Then the cabin came back into focus, the hum of engines, the faint snore from the man across the aisle, the cool air brushing my skin. And him, still there, still stone still, but his head had tilted, just slightly, toward me. His jaw brushed my hair. I froze. My first instinct was to pull away, but something stopped me. Not his hand, not his body. Something else. Something I couldn't explain. The air between us felt charged, like a storm about to break. My heart hammered, and I realized I wasn't just aware of his presence. I was drawn, like a string pulled tight between us. I shifted carefully, trying to give him back his space, but in that small movement, I caught a glimpse of his face from the corner of my eye. His expression wasn't blank anymore. His brows were drawn, his lips pressed in a line. He looked like a man fighting something invisible, and his nostrils flared, as if he were smelling me. A chill ran down my spine, and not just because it was strange. No, because the look in his eyes wasn't human. I told myself I was imagining it. Just exhaustion playing tricks on me. But deep down, I knew better. The rest of the flight blurred. My head tipped against him again, though this time I was hyper-aware of it, my heart pounding like a drum. He didn't move me, didn't wake me, just sat there as still and unreadable as a statue, but I knew. He was watching me even when his eyes were closed. I didn't know his name, didn't know why sitting next to him felt like balancing on the edge of something I couldn't see. But I knew this. Nothing about him was ordinary. And as the plane descended toward the glowing city in the desert, a single thought rattled through my head, wild and certain. This man would ruin me. I pressed my forehead to the cool glass of the window, trying to steady myself, but it didn't help. The lights of Las Vegas spread below us like fire, too bright, too alive. Beside me, he shifted, finally breaking the silence. His voice was low, rough, cutting through the hum of the plane. "Sleep while you can," he said. My stomach dropped. I didn't ask what he meant, because I wasn't sure I wanted the answer. And when the wheels hit the ground, something deep in my gut whispered the truth I didn't want to face. Neither of us knew it yet, but when that plane landed, fate would bind us in ways neither expected. Chapter 1. His eyes were the kind that made you want to look away, but couldn't. I'd seen plenty of men in my life. The loud ones who thought they owned the world. The ones who stared too long and made your skin crawl. The ones who ignored you like you were furniture. But this man's eyes were different. They cut through me, sharp and heavy like he saw too much. Gray. Not soft gray. Not storm cloud poetic gray. No, his were the gray of steel. Cold, unbending, unforgiving. And when they landed on me, I felt something in my chest I didn't want to name. We'd been sitting side by side for hours, trapped in that cramped airplane row, our shoulders almost brushing. I told myself I was imagining it when I thought the space between us felt charged, like static before a lightning strike. That was just exhaustion, just my nerves. But his eyes kept finding me, and every time they did, my stomach twisted. I tried to break the silence. My voice came out thin. "Long flight, huh?" He turned his head slowly, as if even giving me that small bit of attention was a choice he didn't hand out lightly. Yes. One word. Low, rough, final. Okay. Not a talker. I looked down at my hands, fiddling with the corner of my boarding pass until it tore. My heart was beating faster than it should have for such a simple exchange. But the silence grew heavier, pressing on me until I couldn't take it. Business or pleasure? For a second, I thought he wouldn't answer. Then his lips curved, barely. Not a smile, not even close. More like a private thought he didn't plan on sharing. Neither, he said. His voice held weight, a gravelly kind of depth that wasn't meant for casual conversation. Something inside me shivered. I nodded like his answer made sense, though it didn't. And you, he asked. I blinked, surprised he cared enough to return the question. Neither, I guess. Just getting away. His gaze sharpened at that, like my words hooked something in him. But then he looked away, staring out the small oval window at the endless dark sky. The conversation should have ended there. That's how it usually went with strangers. You traded meaningless questions, then retreated back into your own lives. But something in the air between us kept pushing. I wanted to know more about him, and that scared me. So, do you live in Vegas? I asked. No. I waited for more, but he gave me nothing. Just that single word, clipped and closed off. I sighed, leaning back into my seat. You're not making this easy. His head tilted toward me, eyes narrowing just slightly, like I'd said something amusing without meaning to. Why should it be easy? I had no answer to that. I didn't even know why I cared. I should have stopped. I should have put on my headphones, closed my eyes, and minded my business. But I couldn't, because the more I sat there, the more I noticed things I shouldn't. The way his fingers tapped slowly against his knee, in rhythm with something only he heard. The way his chest expanded with steady, controlled breaths, as though he was holding something inside, locking it down. The way his scent lingered, earthy and sharp, sinking under my skin. It didn't make sense. None of it did. But my body reacted anyway. My pulse raced. My palms sweated. And when his eyes slid back to mine, catching me staring, I didn't look away fast enough. He held my gaze, unblinking. And for a heartbeat too long, the world around us disappeared. The cramped cabin, the chatter of passengers, the drone of the engines. There was only him. Something in his eyes shifted. Just for a second, the cold steel cracked and heat flickered beneath it. Raw, wild, like an animal pressing against a cage. I sucked in a breath, chest tight. He turned away first, jaw tightening. Whatever had flashed in his eyes, he buried it so quickly I almost doubted I'd seen it. Almost. I didn't know what possessed me to whisper, "What are you?" His head snapped toward me. His stare so sharp it felt like a blade against my skin. "Careful," he said softly. I froze. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. That one word, careful, was enough to send a chill crawling down my spine. But even as fear prickled through me, something else stirred. Curiosity. Pull. A thread tying me to him, whether I wanted it or not. I faced forward, pressing my lips together, pretending to focus on the movie flickering on the seat screen. My heart wouldn't calm. Every cell in my body buzzed with restless awareness, as though my skin knew something my mind refused to understand. The hours dragged. People slept. The cabin lights dimmed. But I couldn't rest. Not with him there. Not with his presence swallowing all the air between us. At some point, I dozed barely. When I jerked awake, his eyes were on me again. Watching. Unmoving. Not like a man looking at a woman, but like a predator watching prey. I should have been terrified, but I wasn't. Instead, heat rushed through me, confusing and unwanted. I looked away, chewing my lip until I tasted blood. He noticed. Of course he noticed. "Don't do that," he murmured. I snapped my head toward him. "What?" His gaze dipped to my lip, then back to my eyes. "That." My breath caught. His tone wasn't casual. It wasn't even annoyed. It was rough, strained, as if that small action pushed against something he was barely holding back. I forced my hands into my lap, gripping them until my knuckles hurt. You don't get to tell me what to do. His jaw clenched, muscle ticking. You have no idea what you're playing with. Anger flared through me, hot enough to burn away some of the fear. Then tell me, what exactly am I playing with? Silence. His stare burned into me, unyielding. Then, softer, almost too quiet to hear, fate. The word hung between us, heavy and impossible. I didn't ask what he meant. Couldn't. My throat was too tight, my chest too full of things I couldn't name. The captain's voice broke through the intercom, announcing our descent into Las Vegas. The cabin stirred awake around us, seatbelts clicking, bags shuffled, sleepy murmurs filling the air. But I sat frozen, trapped in those eyes. His, mine, the stranger's eyes. And as the wheels touched the ground, a truth whispered through me like a warning I didn't yet understand. When the plane touched down in Las Vegas, I had no idea I wasn't leaving as just myself, but as someone's Luna. Chapter 2. The city hit me like a punch to the chest. Las Vegas wasn't quiet. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't the fresh start I'd imagined when I clicked buy on that ticket. It was noise, neon, music thumping from invisible speakers, people laughing too loud, stumbling in heels too high, flashing money like it meant nothing. I stepped off the plane with my bag slung over my shoulder, my body heavy from lack of sleep, and my head already pounding. I should have kept walking, should have gone straight to the cheap motel I'd booked. But then his voice caught me. Stay. I turned. Damien stood a few feet away, towering over the crowd like he didn't belong to it. That dark jacket still clung to him, his presence cutting through the chaos. He wasn't shouting, but his words found me anyway, threading through the noise like a command. I blinked. What? His eyes locked on mine. Have a drink with me. I laughed once, sharp and awkward. Right. Because drinking with strangers in Vegas is such a smart idea. You're not afraid, he said flatly. I wasn't sure if it was a question or a fact. Either way, it scraped against something raw inside me. I crossed my arms. Maybe I am. You don't know me. He stepped closer and suddenly the crowd didn't exist. His voice dropped lower for me alone. I know enough, and that was the problem. I should have said no. Every survival instinct screamed at me to turn around, to disappear into the glowing blur of the city and never look back. But I was tired, lonely. My body hummed with restless energy I didn't understand, pulled toward him even as my head fought against it. Fine, I muttered, more to myself than to him. One drink. His mouth twitched like he'd expected me to give in. We ended up in a bar just off the strip. Not one of the flashy ones, but quieter, darker, tucked between buildings with peeling signs. A place that smelled like whiskey and smoke, where people kept to themselves. I sat across from him in a booth, my hands wrapped around a glass I hadn't touched. The dim light caught his face, carving out shadows that made him look sharper, more dangerous. I forced myself to break the silence. So, Damien, right? He nodded once. That's all you're giving me? His eyes met mine, steady and unbothered. Names are enough. Not for me, I shot back. You know I just told you my whole life in 3 words, getting away. But you, nothing. Who does that? His lips pressed into something that wasn't quite a smile. Someone who doesn't need to explain himself. Anger flared, sudden and hot. God, you're arrogant. Or honest. I leaned back, shaking my head. You think you're honest, but you're not. You're hiding something. His gaze sharpened, like I'd said too much. For a second, something wild flickered in his eyes again. The same thing I'd seen on the plane. I held my breath. Then he leaned forward, resting his forearms on the table. His voice was low, steady. And you're not hiding anything? That hit harder than I expected. I dropped my gaze to the glass between my hands, avoiding his stare. I hated that he was right. I was hiding plenty. My past. My fear. The truth that I had no one waiting for me. No plan. no safety net. Just me and this city I didn't understand. But I wouldn't give him that satisfaction. Maybe I am, I said quietly. But at least I don't pretend I'm not human. His expression shifted, sharp and unreadable. Who says I do? I frowned, ready to fire back, but the words tangled in my throat. Something in his tone didn't sound like denial, more like a warning. The silence stretched again, thick and uncomfortable. I grabbed my drink, forcing myself to take a sip. It burned down my throat, bitter and strong. I coughed, slamming the glass down. His eyes stayed on me the whole time. What? I snapped. Nothing. You're staring. You're worth staring at. The words landed hard, so blunt I almost forgot to breathe. Heat shot through me, and I hated myself for the way it made my heart race. I scoffed, forcing out a laugh. Do you practice lines like that? His gaze didn't waver. No. The air between us tightened. My skin buzzed, my body alive with something I couldn't explain. I tried to look away, tried to remind myself that I didn't know him, that I owed him nothing. But my eyes kept finding his. Why me? I whispered before I could stop myself. His jaw clenched. Because I couldn't ignore you. My stomach flipped. I hated the way his words made me feel. Like I was teetering on the edge of something dangerous. I forced myself to straighten, breaking the spell. Well, you'll have to get used to it. Because after this drink, that's it. I'm not. His hand moved across the table, fast, steady, landing over mine before I could finish. His skin was warm, his grip firm but not crushing. You think it's that simple? He asked. I stared at his hand covering mine, every nerve in my body lighting up. My pulse thundered in my ears. Yes, I said, though my voice shook. His eyes narrowed, his thumb brushing the side of my hand in a way that felt more dangerous than gentle. You're lying. I yanked my hand back, breathless, angry at myself for the way my body missed the contact the second it was gone. I don't even know you, and you don't know me. I know enough, he said again, his voice final certain. Something in me cracked. Maybe it was the exhaustion, or the loneliness, or the way the city felt too big and too bright. Maybe it was him. But I didn't walk out. I didn't leave him sitting there. Instead, I stayed. And as I sat in that dim bar with Damien Blackthorn's steel gray eyes locked on mine, a sinking truth coiled in my chest. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning. I didn't know what would happen next. I didn't know why my pulse raced every time he looked at me. But I knew one thing. I wasn't safe with him. And yet I couldn't walk away. I never saw the trap until it closed around me. She never expected her next memory would be waking up with a ring on her finger. Chapter 3. I woke up to silk sheets brushing against my skin. That alone was wrong. My bed back home squeaked with every turn, springs digging into my back, and smelled faintly of mold. This one felt like a cloud wrapped in money. For a second, my tired brain wanted to believe I'd dreamed it all. The flight, the stranger, the drink, the way the Vegas lights had blurred into something reckless. But then I saw it. A ring. On my finger. My chest clenched so hard I almost choked on my own breath. The simple band caught the light from the window, shining like it wanted to mock me. I yanked my hand back as if it burned me. What the hell is this? My voice cracked, loud in the quiet room. The room itself wasn't just expensive, it was obscene. A massive chandelier glittered above, gold accents everywhere. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the endless sprawl of Vegas. And in the corner, slouched in a chair like he owned both the view and the world itself, sat him. Damien Blackthorn. Only now he wasn't the stranger from the plane. Not really. His disguise, the muted clothes, the attempt at anonymity was gone. He looked like power wrapped in flesh. His posture screamed authority, his dark eyes pinning me before I could even sit up fully. You're awake. His voice was smooth, but beneath it was something sharp. A blade hidden under velvet. I clutched the blanket to my chest, heart slamming. What did you do to me? His gaze flicked to my hand. I did what was necessary. Necessary. My voice cracked again, rising. There's a ring on my finger. Did we? My stomach lurched. Tell me we didn't. We married, he said flatly, as if it were nothing more than a transaction. My head spun. I gripped the sheets until my knuckles whitened. Married? I don't even know you. You know enough, he said. He stood then, and the sheer size of him made the room feel smaller. His movements were controlled, almost too controlled, like every muscle had to obey him or else. What matters is that my wolf knew you. The bond wouldn't be silenced. Here, in this city, human laws gave me the cover I needed. The Pack's law gave me no choice. His words made no sense. Or maybe they did, and I just didn't want to understand them. My stomach nodded. You're insane. No, he stepped closer, his eyes dark, unreadable. I'm an alpha. You are my mate. Mate. The word hit me harder than I expected. Something in my chest pulled at the sound of it, like a cord being tugged from deep inside. I hated that it didn't feel completely foreign. I hated that some small part of me didn't want to laugh in his face. I forced my voice to stay steady. Undo it. Get it annulled, or divorced, or whatever the hell it takes. I never agreed to this. His jaw tightened. Consent doesn't change the bond. The wolf doesn't ask permission. It claims. I shook my head so hard it made me dizzy. You don't get to decide my life. I don't care what your wolf wants. You will care, he said, softer now, but somehow more threatening than when he'd raised his voice. Because the bond doesn't just tie us. It changes you. Already you feel it, don't you? And the awful truth was I did. My heart thumped in strange rhythms when he was near. My senses seemed sharper, colors brighter, even the air heavier. None of it made sense, but my body knew before my mind did. I shoved the thought down. I feel nothing, I lied. His lips curved, not quite a smile. You can lie to yourself if it makes you feel safer. But you can't lie to the bond. It's already written on you. Tears pricked my eyes, hot and angry. You stole my choice. Do you understand that? Whatever bond you think this is, whatever rules your world has, it doesn't erase what you did. For a second, something flickered in his expression. Not regret, not guilt. Something darker, quieter. But then it was gone, replaced by steel. You'll learn, he said. I wanted to scream, to throw the ring in his face, to tear the chandelier from the ceiling and shatter all the glass around us. But all I could do was sit there, shaking under the weight of something I didn't understand. Why me? I whispered finally. Out of everyone, why me? His eyes locked on mine, sharp enough to pin me in place. Because fate doesn't ask. It takes. I turned away, staring at the endless spread of Vegas beyond the window. Bright lights, flashing signs, promises of freedom and sin. Somewhere out there, people were gambling, laughing, drinking, living lives they chose. And here I was, trapped in a cage made of gold and law and a bond one didn't believe in. I touched the ring again. My hand shook. I'll leave, I said, though my voice lacked conviction. I'll walk out that door and you'll never see me again. You won't, he said simply. Not a threat. Just certainty. I hated that I believed him. Silence stretched between us. I tried to breathe, tried to find some kind of ground under me. But everything tilted, as if the room itself had shifted. My life, what little of it I had, was gone, replaced by something I hadn't chosen. When I finally looked back at him, his gaze hadn't moved from me once. Watching, waiting, claiming me without touching me. And that was when I knew the truth. Leaving him wasn't an option because the bond had already marked me. Chapter 4. I never believed in monsters, not really. But when Damien's eyes burned gold in front of me, when his voice carried a weight that felt older than time itself, I knew I wasn't dealing with a man anymore. He wasn't just Damien. He wasn't just the stranger on the plane, or the arrogant man who'd pulled me into his orbit in Vegas. He was something else, something untouchable. I need you to listen to me, Ava. His tone was sharp but steady, like he was used to giving orders no one dared question. I am the Alpha King. I laughed at first, a bitter, nervous sound that cracked in my throat. What does that even mean? You're insane. I should have walked away from you the second I landed. His gaze didn't shift. It didn't flinch. His shoulders filled the room, his presence pressing against me like an invisible wall. It means every wolf in this country bows to me. It means when I marked you, when the bond sealed in blood and vow, you became my Luna. My heart slammed so hard against my chest I thought it might tear through my ribs. No, you've got the wrong girl. I'm not. I'm not some queen or Luna or whatever the hell you're calling it. I swallowed hard, fists clenching. I'm just a poor girl who had nothing, who took a plane because she wanted to disappear. That's who I am. Not this. His expression didn't soften. If anything, it hardened, his jaw ticking with restrained power. The bond doesn't care who you think you are. The words landed like chains. I shook my head, pacing the wide room. This is insane. I can't be your Luna. I can't even keep my life together. Look at me. My voice cracked, humiliatingly raw. You want me to stand next to you? To be your equal? I don't belong in your world. You belong to me. His voice was low, almost a growl. And yet there was something there, something wounded, buried deep, that made my chest ache even as I wanted to run. The door opened without warning. A tall man with sharp cheekbones and storm-dark eyes stepped inside. His scent hit me first, wild, feral, like the forest after rain. He froze when his gaze landed on me, and then he bowed his head toward Damien, Alpha King. His tone was laced with respect and confusion. The rumors are true. Damien's eyes didn't leave me as he answered. She is my Luna. The man's head lifted slowly, disbelief flashing across his face before it twisted into something sharper. Anger. She's human. The words slashed through the air like a blade. I staggered back, heat rushing to my face. Human. He said it like it was dirt, like it was the lowest thing I could be. Damien's voice was a whip. Watch your tongue, Marcus. But Marcus didn't bow this time. His eyes narrowed at me, and I felt the weight of his hatred. You would throw away centuries of strength, of bloodlines, for this? For her. I couldn't breathe. The walls pressed in, the chandelier above seeming to blur. I shouldn't have been here. I should have fought harder to run when I had the chance. Damien stepped forward, and the tension in the room turned suffocating. She is mine. That is all you need to know. Marcus's lip curled, but he bowed again, slower this time. Yes, Alpha. He cast one last look at me before leaving, and I knew, deep in the marrow of my bones, that it wasn't over. When the door shut, I collapsed onto the edge of the bed, pressing my hands over my face. They hate me. Damien's footsteps were steady as he approached, but I refused to look up. My body trembled, shame burning in my chest. They don't matter. His voice was softer now, but still heavy with authority. What matters is the bond. No one can undo it. No one can take you from me. I lowered my hands, meeting his gaze through the blur of tears I didn't want him to see. But they'll try. His jaw flexed. For the first time, something like unease flickered across his face. Yes, silence stretched between us, thick and heavy. The kind of silence that hides threats in its shadows. I thought about Marcus's look, the way his words dripped with disgust. If one man felt that way, how many others would? How many wolves in Damien's so-called pack would see me as nothing but a weakness? A mistake? I wasn't built for this. I wasn't built to be hunted. But Damien stood in front of me, larger than life, immovable. His scent, dark and intoxicating, wrapped around me and my chest pulled tight. His world was dangerous, and now I was trapped in the center of it. And yet some traitorous part of me, deep down, didn't want to run anymore. I hated myself for it. I forced my voice out raw and trembling. Why me? Why human? His eyes darkened, his hand brushing against his jaw as if the answer was clawing at him from the inside. Because fate doesn't make mistakes. I almost laughed. Almost. But the gravity in his eyes stole the sound from my throat. Fate. Wolves. Alpha King. Luna. It was madness. And still, every time he looked at me, I felt the bond like fire beneath my skin, like something ancient calling my name. I didn't know if I wanted to scream or collapse. Maybe both. A knock rattled the door. Damien's body went rigid, his wolf flashing in his eyes again. He strode across the room, flinging it open with a force that shook the hinges. Another wolf stood there, younger, eyes wide and frantic. Alpha, there's talk spreading. Some of the pack, he glanced at me, nervous, then lowered his head. Some say the human has to be removed before she destroys us. My blood froze. Damien's growl filled the air, sharp and violent. Who said it? The boy shook his head. I don't know, but it's moving fast. Damien slammed the door shut, his shoulders heaving with rage. His eyes burned when he turned back to me. I gripped the sheets beneath me, nails biting into the fabric. The room felt colder than before, the walls thinner. Every second that passed made the danger crawl closer, unseen but certain. They want me gone. My voice was barely a whisper. His chest rose and fell, steady but dangerous. Someone in my own pack wants you gone. The bond between us pulsed, alive and merciless, and for the first time since meeting him, I understood the truth. I wasn't just caught in his world. I was a target in it, and no matter how much I wanted to deny it, fate had already tied me to him. I wasn't walking away from this. Not alive. Chapter 5. I knew I didn't belong the moment I stepped into that gathering. The pack house was buzzing with voices, laughter echoing across the grand hall, crystal chandeliers swaying overhead. Everyone's eyes seemed to land on me at once, measuring, judging, cutting me down without a word. I could almost hear their thoughts, the human girl, the weak one, the mistake. Damien's hand rested at the small of my back, a silent command to stand tall. But my chest was tight, my fingers curled at my sides, and all I wanted was to disappear. Then I saw her. She moved through the crowd like she owned the room, every step elegant, calculated. Celine. Her hair was long and black as midnight, her gown clinging to her like liquid fire. She smiled at Damien, but her eyes never softened. They burned with something sharper, a claim, a warning. Everyone else lowered their heads when Damien passed, but not her. Alpha, she said, her voice dripping honey, but her gaze sliding to me with venom. You didn't tell us you'd be bringing a surprise. I opened my mouth, but Damien's arm stiffened. His voice was calm, even but laced with steel. She isn't a surprise. She's my Luna. The room shifted. Conversations died mid-sentence. Wolves exchanged looks, some muttering under their breath. My stomach dropped. I wanted to run, but my feet stayed rooted. Celine tilted her head, a smile tugging at her lips like she knew something I didn't. You're Luna, she repeated, as if tasting the words, mocking them. How bold. I swallowed hard. She wasn't just beautiful, she was dangerous. Every instinct in me screamed it. The night dragged on, each second a test of endurance. Wolves came forward, some with polite nods, others with thinly veiled hostility. I tried to breathe, tried to remember Damien's warning earlier. Don't show weakness. But every look Celine threw me made it harder. Later, when the pack gathered for a toast, I excused myself, pretending I needed air. The walls were closing in, and I couldn't breathe in that hall full of wolves who hated me. The gardens outside were quiet, the night air cool against my skin. I leaned against a marble railing, staring at the moon above, wondering what kind of twisted joke fate had played putting me here. That's when I heard it, the snap of a branch. I froze. My heart raced, but I told myself it was nothing. A guard, maybe. A servant. Then a whisper, low and sharp, you don't belong here. Before I could turn, a hand clamped over my mouth. Another arm snaked around me, dragging me back into the shadows of the garden. Panic ripped through me. I kicked, clawed, my muffled scream swallowed by the night. A flash of silver caught my eye ablade. I thrashed harder, tears burning my vision. I'm going to die. And then everything shifted. A growl tore through the air, raw and violent. The grip on me faltered as a dark blur slammed into us, throwing my attacker to the ground. I stumbled back, gasping, just in time to see Damien pinning the man to the dirt. His wolf was in his eyes, glowing, furious, merciless. "Touch her again and you die," Damien snarled, his voice inhuman. The blade clattered to the ground. My knees gave out, and I pressed a hand to my chest, trying to steady the wild pounding of my heart. The man mumbled something, blood dripping from his lip. Damien tightened his hold until the man choked. "Who sent you?" The attacker's eyes flicked toward the hall. For a split second, I saw it. Fear, and then something else. Loyalty. Celine. He didn't answer. He didn't have to. The look said everything. Damien must have seen it too, because his jaw clenched. With one final shove, he threw the man aside. Guards appeared out of nowhere, dragging the attacker away. But Damien's eyes stayed locked on me. "Are you hurt?" His voice was rough, urgent. I shook my head, though my whole body trembled. I'm fine." But I wasn't fine. Not even close. My throat ached where his hand had been. My palms burned from scratching at him, and my heart wouldn't stop racing. Damien stepped closer, his hands hovering like he wanted to touch me, but didn't trust himself. His eyes were still glowing faintly, and I realized he was fighting to keep his wolf in check. "You should have stayed by my side," he said finally, low and sharp. Anger flared in me, hot and raw. "So this is my fault now, because I needed air." His jaw tightened, but he didn't answer right away. When he finally spoke, his voice was quieter. "I can't protect you if you run from me." I laughed bitterly, wiping my face with trembling hands. Maybe I wouldn't need protecting if half your pack didn't want me dead. Silence. His gaze flickered, something unreadable passing through it. Then he looked away, his expression hardening. "Go inside," he said. "I'll handle this." I wanted to scream at him, to demand why he wasn't furious, why he wasn't tearing down the walls to drag out the one behind this. But the truth was, I already knew. He was furious. He was holding it in, burying it under that alpha mask he wore so well. Still, it hurt, the way he kept himself locked away, refusing to admit what I saw in his eyes. He cared. He wanted me safe, but he'd never say it. Not out loud. I walked back into the hall on shaky legs, my mind spinning. The music had started again, wolves laughing and drinking like nothing had happened outside. But every time I caught Celine's gaze across the room, that sly smile on her lips, I knew. This wasn't over. Not even close. And for the first time, the truth hit me like a blade to the chest. I wasn't just fighting for love. I was fighting for my life. Chapter 6. I woke up drenched in sweat, my heart pounding as if I'd been running for hours. My skin burned, every inch of me too hot, too alive. At first, I thought it was just another nightmare, another leftover echo of the fear that came from being married to a man like Damien. But this wasn't fear. This was something else, something that felt like it had claws beneath my skin, tearing, pulling, begging for relief. The mate bond. I didn't need him to explain it to me. My body already knew. I stumbled out of bed, pressing my palms against the cool glass of the window, desperate for something to soothe the fire spreading through me. But the more I fought it, the worse it got. My chest ached with longing I couldn't understand. My pulse quickened with every breath, whispering his name in the spaces between my heartbeats. Damien. I hated it. I hated that my body betrayed me when my mind screamed that I shouldn't want him. I hated that even though I resented everything he'd forced on me, the wedding, the title, the cage, I couldn't breathe without aching for him. That morning, I avoided him. I barely looked at him during breakfast, keeping my eyes on the plate even though I felt him watching me. His gaze, heavy, sharp. It was like he knew what I was going through, like he could feel it too. And maybe he could. That was the curse of this bond. It wasn't one-sided. By nightfall, the bond showed me its second cruelty. Dreams. But these weren't my dreams. They were his. I saw flashes, blood on his hands, a battlefield under a silver moon, his wolf tearing through enemies with merciless strength. I saw him younger, training until his knuckles split, his father's voice harsh in his ear. Then a woman, faceless in the shadows, whispering betrayal. His anger, his loneliness, his rise to power. I woke up gasping, my throat raw from a scream I hadn't realized I let out. Damien was in the doorway, shirtless, his muscles tense, his eyes glowing faintly gold in the darkness. He didn't move closer, but his presence filled the room. "You saw it," he said, his voice low, rough, like gravel underfoot. I swallowed hard. "I don't want to see your past. You don't have a choice." I shook my head, anger flaring even as my chest ached. "This bond, whatever it is, it's a prison." His jaw tightened. For a moment, I thought he'd snap at me, remind me of who he was, of the alpha king who never bowed, never apologized. But then something shifted in his eyes. A flicker of pain, gone as quickly as it appeared. "My wolf doesn't care what you want," he admitted, "and neither does yours. The bond will keep pulling until one of us breaks." I wanted to scream at him, to claw my way out of this twisted tie between us, but the truth was crueler than that. He was right. The following days were torture. Every time he walked into a room, the air grew heavier, hotter. My skin prickled, my pulse skipped. I'd catch myself staring at his mouth, wondering what his lips would taste like, and then curse myself for even thinking it. I saw how he struggled too. His wolf pushed against the surface, restless, agitated. Sometimes I caught his hands gripping the edge of the table too tightly, the veins in his arms standing out as though he was fighting the urge to reach for me. His control was iron, but not perfect. Once, late at night, I found him in the training yard, bare-chested, his fists pounding against a heavy bag until his knuckles split and blood smeared the leather. He didn't stop when he saw me. He only hit harder. "This bond is weakness," he growled, not looking at me. "It makes me want things I swore I'd never want again." I didn't ask what he meant. I didn't want to know who had broken him before me. But even then, I couldn't tear my eyes away. That night, the dreams returned. I saw him as a boy standing alone in the woods, watching a pack he didn't belong to. I felt his hunger, his yearning to be accepted. I felt his rage when they turned their backs on him. I woke up with tears on my cheeks, my chest aching with emotions that weren't mine. The bond wasn't just pulling me closer, it was unraveling me. By the fifth night, I couldn't take it anymore. I stormed into his chambers, shaking, furious, desperate. He looked up from the papers on his desk, his expression unreadable. "This has to stop," I snapped. He raised a brow, calm, too calm. "You think I control it? You control everything else. Control this." For the first time, something cracked in his mask. His eyes darkened, his wolf pressing close to the surface. "You think I haven't tried?" His voice was sharp, laced with frustration. "Every time I push you away, the bond claws back twice as hard. Every time I tell myself I don't need you, I wake up tasting your fear, your anger, your tears. You think this is easy for me?" My breath caught. The room felt too small, too hot. My pulse thundered in my ears. I whispered, "Then what do we do?" For a long moment, he just stared at me, his chest rising and falling like he was holding back a storm. Then he stood, moving closer, slow, deliberate. His presence swallowed me whole. "You want the truth?" His voice was low, dangerous. "The bond wins. Always. I should have run. I should have pushed him away." But when his hand brushed against mine, heat surged through me so fierce it stole my breath. His fingers curled around my wrist, and I didn't fight it. I couldn't. He tilted my chin up, forcing me to meet his eyes. Gold flickered in their depths, his wolf demanding, mine answering in silence. My lips parted without thought, my body betraying everything my mind screamed. Then he kissed me. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't careful. It was raw, consuming, like fire catching dry wood. The world blurred, everything narrowing to the press of his mouth, The taste of him, the way his grip anchored me as if I'd slip away if he let go. And I kissed him back. One kiss shattered the walls between us and ignited a fire neither could control. Chapter 7. I never thought silence could be heavier than words, but Damien's silence that night felt like a chain tightening around my throat. We sat in his private study, the fire crackling in the corner. He'd summoned me here, said he needed to talk, and now he just stared at the flames like they might give him the answers he refused to say out loud. My hands twisted together in my lap, restless, and I finally broke the silence. Why do you keep pushing me away, Damien? My voice was low, tired, but steady. You act like I'm poison 1 minute, and then you fight to keep me alive the next. Which is it? His jaw flexed. His eyes shadowed as they finally met mine. For a moment, I saw something raw and broken, but then he shut it down again. You think you want the truth, he said slowly. But once I tell you, you'll wish you never asked. I swallowed, the heat of the fire prickling against my skin. Try me. His hands clenched into fists on the desk. He looked like a man fighting a war with himself. Then, finally, he stood and turned his back to me. My first Luna, he began, voice rough, was slaughtered right in front of me. The words hit me like a blade. My breath caught, and I sat frozen as he kept speaking, his voice hoarse. Each word dragged out like it hurt him to say it. She wasn't just my mate. She was light. And the night she died, I swore I would never let anyone close again. No mate. No bond. Nothing that could be used against me. He turned then, eyes burning with a pain so sharp I almost couldn't look at him. And then you showed up. My chest tightened. The room felt too small, too suffocating. So that's why you keep looking at me like I'm a mistake, I whispered. He didn't deny it. You were never supposed to exist in my world. And yet the bond forced my hand. I can't kill it, Ava, no matter how much I want to. I pressed a hand to my chest, the bond flaring as if it had been waiting for him to admit it. The heat spread through me, sharp and insistent. I hated how my body betrayed me, answering to a bond one never chose. But the weight in his eyes told me this was more than fear of love. It was fear of loss. I wanted to scream at him, hit him, demand to know why fate would bind me to a man who swore never to love again. But before I could say a word, a sudden wave of dizziness crashed over me. My vision blurred, my skin burned, and I stumbled against the chair. Ava. His voice was sharp now, urgent. He was at my side in a second, steadying me as heat surged through my body. My pulse hammered in my ears. My throat was dry, but somehow words pushed past my lips. It's the bond again, I gasped, clutching his arm. His brows furrowed, but there was something else in his face, fear. He guided me to sit, his hand surprisingly gentle. What do you see? He demanded. The firelight flickered, and then it wasn't the study I saw anymore. It was a vision, his vision. A woman's laughter, soft and warm. A child's cry. The smell of blood. And then darkness, screams, death. I jerked back with a sob, clutching my head. Damien froze. His grip tightened on my shoulders. You saw her, he said, voice sharp, but not angry, terrified. I don't know what I saw, I whispered. My whole body trembled. It wasn't just you. It was something more. His silence this time wasn't heavy. It was deadly. Finally, he muttered, the moon's blessing. I blinked. What? He pulled away from me, pacing the room like a caged animal. It can't be. It's too soon. Too dangerous. His hands raked through his hair as he muttered to himself, forgetting I was even there. Damien. My voice cracked as I stood, shaky but defiant. What the hell is the moon's blessing? He stopped. His shoulders were rigid, but he turned slowly to face me, his expression grim. It's rare, almost impossible. A Luna chosen not only by her alpha, but by the moon itself. She carries the power to heal or destroy a pack, to unite wolves or rip them apart. The room spun around me. You think I have that? His eyes burned into mine. You're already seeing what I see, feeling what I feel. That's not just the bond. That's the moon choosing you. And if word of this gets out, his voice trailed off, but the warning was clear. They'll come for me, I whispered. His silence was answer enough. The fire cracked loudly, making me flinch. My whole body was shaking, and for the first time since I met him, Damien looked almost human. Haunted, broken, afraid. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I asked, my voice raw. Because once you know, there's no undoing it. And because his throat worked and he looked away. Because if the rival alphas discover the blessing lives in you, they'll kill you before it ever comes to life. My heart dropped. The fire seemed colder now, the shadows pressing in. I wasn't just a human dragged into his cursed world. I was a target. And the worst part? I could see it in Damien's eyes. He wasn't sure if even he could protect me from what was coming. But the rival alphas would kill to stop her before that blessing came to life. Chapter 8. I wanted to scream. Not because of Damien, not because of the pack, but because I felt like I was disappearing inside a life that was never supposed to be mine. One day I was a nobody waitress in a rundown diner, and now I was expected to stand beside the Alpha King, to carry myself as Luna, to smile while wolves whispered that I didn't belong. But the truth? They were right. I didn't belong here. I stared at my reflection in the long mirror of Damien's chambers. My hair was tangled from restless sleep, my eyes hollow. The dress one of the pack women had given me clung too tight, as if even fabric wanted to remind me I was an outsider. I pressed my hands against the dresser, leaning forward. You don't fit here, Ava, I whispered to myself. The word Luna felt like a cruel joke. They bowed to me in front of Damien, but when his back was turned, I saw their eyes cut sharp, cold. And Celine, the way she looked at me was enough to make my blood run cold. I had survived her first attempt, but for how long? I thought of my old life, the creaking apartment with its broken heater, the steady rhythm of the diner bell above the door, the smell of coffee burned to the pot. It was hard, it was empty, but it was mine. I knew who I was there. Here. I wasn't sure anymore. The door opened. Damien stepped in, his presence filling the room like a storm. His shirt was half undone, chest gleaming with sweat from training, his eyes glowing faintly gold. His wolf lingered closer to the surface these days. He stopped when he saw me, his gaze narrowing. You look like you're about to run. The words pierced me. My lips parted, but no excuse came. He always knew. Always. I don't belong here, I said bluntly. My voice cracked, but I forced myself to meet his eyes. Your people hate me. I can't breathe in this world, Damien. I need to go back to mine. The shift in him was instant. His jaw tightened, his eyes flared. I felt it in the bond, that electric thread tying us together, snapping hot against my chest. His wolf didn't like the words, not one bit. You think you can just walk away? His voice dropped low, rough. From me. I swallowed hard, my heart slamming. I never asked for this. I never asked to be your Luna. I'm human, Damien. Human. I don't have claws or fangs or power. I can't keep living waiting for your enemies, or your own pack, to tear me apart. For a second, I thought I saw something flicker in his eyes, pain buried under the alpha steel. But then his wolf pushed forward, and the air in the room grew suffocating. You are mine, he growled, stepping closer, whether you accept it or not. I stumbled back, but the dresser stopped me. His scent, pine and smoke, wrapped around me until I couldn't think. My chest ached with the bond pulling tighter, punishing me for even considering leaving him. Heat rolled through me, the ache of longing I couldn't fight no matter how much I wanted to. I can't do this, I whispered, more to myself than him. His hands slammed against the dresser on either side of me, trapping me. His wolf's dominance pressed against my skin, demanding submission. But beneath that force, I felt something else, desperation. If you leave, Ava, you'll break me, he said, and his voice wasn't the alpha's. It was raw, vulnerable, almost human. I stared at him, stunned. Damien never let weakness show. But his wolf was trembling with the thought of rejection. My throat burned. And if I stay, it'll break me. His gaze locked on mine, wild and furious, but also pleading. I didn't know if I wanted to kiss him or scream at him. Maybe both. Silence stretched between us, heavy, until I tore myself free from his cage of arms. I pushed past him, my chest tight, my legs shaking. I reached the door before he spoke again. Try to leave, Ava, and see what happens, he warned, his voice thick with the alpha's command. I froze. My fingers gripped the doorframe, nails digging in. Fear slid down my spine. But so did something else, anger. I hated that he thought he could control me. I hated that part of me wanted him too. I walked out without looking back. The days that followed were worse. The bond burned through me like fire. Every time Damien walked into a room, my body reacted before my mind could fight it. My pulse would race, my skin would heat, and at night, the bond tugged so hard that I woke gasping, reaching for him even when I didn't want to. I told myself I could survive it, that I could push through, but deep down I knew I was lying. The bond wasn't something you ignored. It was a living force, cruel, relentless. One evening, when the moon was high, I packed a small bag. Just clothes, nothing more. My hands shook as I stuffed the dress I had worn the night I met him into the bottom. It was a reminder of the girl I was before all this. I told myself I would slip out when the guards rotated, make it down the mountain, find a way back to the city. I didn't care how. I just needed to breathe again. The moment I touched the door, the bond screamed. A searing pain ripped through my chest, doubling me over. My breath hitched, and I tasted salt, tears I hadn't realized had fallen. And then I felt him. Damien. His wolf slammed into me through the bond, furious, desperate, unhinged. The echo of his roar carried in my head, shaking me to the core. Before I could take another step, the door burst open. He stood there, eyes blazing gold, chest heaving, his wolf so close to the surface his voice was barely human when he spoke. You were going to leave me. It wasn't a question. It was a verdict. My bag slipped from my hands. My body wanted to collapse, to give in, to surrender to the mate bond screaming at me to stay. But my heart still wanted to run. His wolf pushed forward, consuming the alpha mask, and I realized too late. When I tried to leave, his wolf snapped, and the alpha in him refused to let me go. Chapter 9. Blood always calls to blood. That's the first thought that hit me when the rival alpha's pack dragged me from the woods. My screams had been swallowed by the night, my body twisted in their grip as I fought, clawed, and kicked, but it didn't matter. They weren't here for me, not really. I was bait, a prize to drag Damien into the fight he had been avoiding. And it worked. Let me go. My voice cracked as their claws dug into my arms. The forest floor scraped my legs raw as they dragged me deeper into their territory. I smelled iron, wet moss, and the rank stench of wolves who lived without honor. My wolf whimpered inside me, small and uncertain, but my human heart was pounding so hard it felt like it might burst out of my chest. Quiet, Luna, one of them hissed, spitting the word like poison. You'll get him here soon enough. That's all you're worth. I wanted to fight harder, to break free. But every time I thrashed, their grip only tightened. My lungs ached with panic. My head spun with one thought, Damien. Would he come? Or would his walls finally hold, leaving me to die in enemy hands? The moon hung high, pale and cruel, when they dragged me into a clearing. A circle had already formed, wolves with hungry eyes and bloodthirst in their growls. At the center stood the rival alpha, a brute with eyes the color of cold steel and scars carved deep into his face. This is what he loves, the alpha sneered, grabbing my chin so hard it made my jaw ache. This weak little thing. He laughed, tossing me aside like I was nothing. My body hit the dirt, but I pushed myself up, refusing to give him the satisfaction of seeing me broken. She's mine, a voice cut through the chaos. Every wolf in the clearing stilled. My heart jolted. Damien. He emerged from the shadows like death itself, his eyes glowing gold, his wolf barely contained beneath his skin. Rage rolled off him in waves, so strong even the rival wolves shifted back a step. "Let her go," Damien growled, his voice deep, final, dangerous. The rival alpha smirked. "If you want her, you'll fight me. To the death." The words rang like a bell, and the pack erupted with howls. Blood would spill tonight. My body shook, not from fear for myself, but for him. Damien, who had sworn he would never love, never bond again. Damien, who carried the weight of ghosts. And yet here he was, walking into the fire for me. They shifted almost in the same breath, bones snapping, fur bursting forth, the clearing exploding with the sound of war. Damien's wolf was massive, darker than midnight, his teeth flashing white as he lunged. The rival alpha met him head-on, two beasts colliding with a force that shook the ground. Claws tore, jaws snapped, blood sprayed across the dirt. The circle of wolves howled and barked, urging on the violence. My heart lodged in my throat as I watched Damien fight like he had nothing left to lose. His wolf moved with power and fury, but the rival was brutal, savage, and just as strong. I couldn't just stand there. I couldn't be silent while they tore each other apart. "Damien," I screamed, my voice ragged, raw. For a split second, his golden eyes flicked to me, and in that moment, the rival alpha struck, ripping across Damien's flank. No, my chest burned, as if the wound were carved into me too. My mate Bond pulsed, screaming, demanding I do something. I staggered forward, pushing past the wolves who tried to hold me back. The rival alpha loomed over Damien, his teeth bared for the killing blow. But I didn't think, I moved. My body was small, human, weak compared to theirs, but I grabbed a fallen branch, sharp and jagged, and swung with everything I had. It slammed against the rival's head, shocking him just long enough for Damien to surge back to his feet. His wolf roared, a sound that split the night, primal and terrifying. With one final, savage strike, Damien ripped the rival alpha down, blood spilling into the dirt, the life leaving his enemy's eyes. Silence fell, broken only by the sound of wolves shifting back, bowing their heads. It was over. He had won. But Damien wasn't looking at them. He was looking at me. He shifted back, his body naked, streaked with blood and sweat. His chest heaved as he stumbled toward me. His eyes weren't cold now, weren't guarded. They burned with something fierce and unspoken. "You stupid, reckless girl," he growled, his voice shaking. His hands cupped my face, his grip trembling. "You could have been killed." "I couldn't just watch," I whispered, tears stinging my eyes. "I couldn't." He silenced me not with words, but with a kiss. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't hesitant. It was raw, consuming, desperate. His lips crashed against mine like he had been starving for this moment, and my body answered with equal hunger. The mate bond roared to life between us, heat spreading through every nerve, every bone, every piece of me. The world fell away. The wolves, the blood, the fear, it all vanished. There was only him, only us, only the fire that burned hotter than anything I had ever known. One kiss shattered the walls between us and ignited a fire neither could control. And as the moon bled red that night, I knew one truth with bone-deep certainty. Our bond would be tested, not by love alone, but by fire and blood. Chapter 10. I thought I was dying when I saw Damien fall. Blood stained his chest, hot and dark, pouring through my fingers as I tried to press against the wound. My heart was slamming so hard it drowned out the growls and cries of the wolves still clashing around us. He looked at me with eyes that flickered between man and wolf, as if he was fighting to stay tethered to this world. "No," I whispered, shaking him, refusing to let his body go limp. "You don't get to leave me. Not now. Not like this." The truth hit me like lightning. Sharp, brutal, impossible to ignore. For all my doubts, for all the times I thought about running, I couldn't. Losing him would break me in ways I didn't want to imagine. The pack had gone silent. I barely noticed until I realized they were watching me. not fighting anymore, waiting. The rival wolves scattered into the night once their alpha fell, but Damien's pack stood frozen. Their loyalty hung in the air, wavering, because their alpha lay bleeding beneath my hands. Something inside me snapped. I didn't think. I acted. I tore the hem of my ruined dress, pressing it against his wound, my hands soaked with his blood. My voice shook as I shouted, not just at him, but at all of them. Don't just stand there. Help him. It was the first time I commanded them. The words came out like a roar, foreign and yet mine, fueled by something deeper than fear. And for the first time, they listened. Warriors rushed forward, shifting back into men, dragging supplies, bandages, water. They moved because I told them to. I stayed with him, pressing down, whispering into his ear, even when he drifted in and out of consciousness. You can't die. You hear me? I'm not ready to hate you less yet. I'm not ready to forgive you either. I'm not ready for anything without you. Hours later, he stirred. His lips cracked open, his voice hoarse. Ava. Relief washed over me so strong my body nearly collapsed. I touched his face, tracing the rough line of his jaw. He looked weak, broken in a way I'd never seen, and yet still him, still Alpha. You scared the hell out of me, I whispered. He smiled, small and faint but real. I should have known it would take you to bring me back. The days that followed blurred into a haze of healing. Damien survived, though barely. I stayed by his side even when the pack urged me to rest. I wouldn't leave him, not after watching death brush so close. One night, when the moon was high and the others had gone quiet, he turned to me. His voice was raw, stripped of the sharp edges he usually wore like armor. I need to tell you something, he said. I braced myself, my chest tightening. I swore I'd never do this again, he continued. After I lost my first Luna, I thought the bond was a curse. I told myself I'd never feel it again, that I'd fight it until the end. But with you, his voice cracked and he swallowed hard, his eyes dark and burning. With you, I can't fight it. I can't live without you, Ava. For a long moment, I couldn't breathe. Those words, simple as they were, held more weight than anything he'd ever said to me. I leaned closer, my hand on his chest where the scar now rested, steady and strong. You think I haven't thought about running? I have. Every damn day. Because I'm human, Damien. I don't belong in this world of teeth and claws and blood. But then, I shook my head, blinking back tears. Every time I try to imagine leaving, I feel empty. And I hate it. I hate how much I need you. But I do. His hand caught mine, rough and warm. Say it. The words trembled on my lips, but I didn't hold them back. Not this time. I love you. It felt like giving in and winning all at once. His grip tightened, his wolf flashing in his eyes, a low rumble vibrating in his chest. And I love you, Ava. My mate. My Luna. The bond flared between us, burning through every scar and every wall we had built. It wasn't gentle. It was fierce, raw, almost violent in its force, but it was ours. The pack didn't accept me at first. Some whispered that I was too human, too weak. I felt their stares, their doubt like daggers in my back. But when I stood before them, when I ordered them to obey while Damien healed, something shifted. They saw the truth. I wasn't leaving. I wasn't hiding. I wasn't just his mate. I was their Luna. I made them listen. I reminded them that I was the one who saved him, who fought to keep their alpha alive when blood covered my hands. Slowly, reluctantly, their heads bowed. Not in love, not yet, but in respect. Damien stood beside me the first time they howled for us. His arm brushed mine, steady and firm. His voice was quiet, but it carried more than any shout. You've changed them, he said. I looked at him, then at the wolves who had once doubted me, but now bowed their heads. No, we did this. Together. His lips touched mine then, not with fire this time, but with a gentleness I never thought he was capable of. It wasn't just a kiss. It was a promise. For the first time, I didn't feel torn between two lives. I felt whole. Bound by fate, yes, but chosen by love. Epilogue. I used to think my life would never change. Just a poor girl scraping by, counting coins for rent, invisible to the world. Now I stood on a rooftop in Las Vegas, the neon glow burning against the desert night, with wolves howling in the distance. And I wasn't invisible anymore. I was Luna. The air was heavy with the scent of smoke and iron. The battle was over, but the memories still clung to me. I could still see the way Damien's blood had spilled across the dirt, the way my own hands had trembled as I pressed against his wound. I had saved him. Me, the girl who once thought she had no place here. And because of that, the pack looked at me differently now. Not just as Damien's mate, but as their Luna. I leaned against the railing, staring out at the city. Las Vegas looked alive, pulsing like a beast with its flashing lights and music echoing through the streets. I thought back to who I was when I first boarded that flight, before fate shoved me into Damien's world. I hadn't asked for this. I hadn't asked to be dragged into war, or to carry a blessing that could destroy everything. And yet, if I was given the choice to go back, I knew I wouldn't take it. Behind me, footsteps echoed. I didn't turn, I knew it was him. Damien moved like the night itself, quiet and sure. You should be resting, he said, his voice low, rough, carrying that authority he couldn't hide even when he tried. I shook my head. Rest feels impossible right now. He came to stand beside me, close enough that I could feel the heat of him. His shirt was torn, his arm wrapped where claws had torn into him. Even injured, he was the alpha, every line of him built on power. But tonight, I saw something else too, weariness. A softness he rarely let anyone see. For a while, neither of us spoke. The silence wasn't uncomfortable, but it was heavy, filled with the weight of everything we'd endured. Finally, he broke it. I should have told you sooner, he said, his voice almost breaking. About my first Luna. About why I pushed you away. I swallowed hard. His secret had torn at me, made me question where I stood in his heart. But hearing him speak it aloud mattered. You were afraid to lose me the same way, I whispered. He turned, his eyes locking onto mine. Afraid doesn't cover it. When I lost her, something inside me died. I swore I'd never let anyone in again. Then you tore through every wall I built, Ava. And it terrified me. Still does. I didn't move away. I couldn't. Because beneath all his strength, all his command, was a man finally admitting he couldn't be invincible. Damien, I said softly, I don't want protection without love. I don't want to be locked away as some prize to guard. If I'm your Luna, it has to be as your equal, not your shadow. For a long moment, he said nothing. His jaw tightened, his wolf glinting in his eyes like fire. And then, finally, he nodded. You're not my shadow, he said, his voice breaking. You're the only thing keeping me from losing myself completely. I can't live without you, Ava. Not as alpha, not as a man. My chest ached at his words, raw and unpolished, but truer than anything I'd ever heard. He had never been good with flowery speeches. Damien's honesty was sharp, sometimes cutting, but I would rather have that than empty promises. I reached for his hand. His fingers curled around mine instantly, rough and warm, like he was afraid to ever let go. I'm not going anywhere, I told him. But I won't be silent. I won't let anyone cage me. If we're doing this, it's on both our terms. A small smile tugged at his mouth, rare and fleeting. Then we do it your way, Luna. Something inside me shifted then. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was just surviving. I felt like I belonged. The pack had seen me fight, seen me bleed for their alpha. They might not love me yet, but they respected me. That was enough to start with. Respect I could build into loyalty, loyalty into love. Not just as Damien's mate, but as their Luna queen. As the night stretched on, I thought about the road that had led me here. From a girl who fell asleep on a stranger's shoulder to a woman standing on the edge of a future she never imagined. Fate had dragged me into this world, but love was the reason I chose to stay. I turned to Damien again, studying the man who had once been nothing more than a nightmare in human form. He had been cruel, broken, guarded. And yet, here he was, my alpha, my mate, holding my hand like it was the only thing keeping him alive. He bent down, his forehead resting against mine. I promise you this, Ava. Not just protection, not just power. Love. Always love. Tears burned in my eyes, but I didn't look away. Good, because I'm not afraid anymore. We stayed like that, pressed together under the endless desert sky, the city blazing beneath us. And for the first time, I felt peace. But even in peace, the air carried a warning. I felt it in the way the wind shifted, in the way Damien's wolf stirred restlessly. This war might have ended, but not all battles were behind us. I lifted my head, staring at the full moon rising over Las Vegas. It glowed red for a moment, as if reminding me of the blood we had spilled, of the bond we had forged. And in that instant, I knew. This wasn't the end. This was only the beginning. Thank you so much, family, for staying with me till the end of this story. Your love and support mean everything. Now I really want to hear from you. Do you think Ava was right to trust Damien after waking up in Vegas as his Luna, even though he never gave her a choice? If you were in her place, would you accept the bond and risk your heart, or fight to take back your freedom? And tell me, should Damien confess the real reason he married her that night, or keep it hidden to protect her? What do you think will happen if Ava learns that fate wasn't the only thing pulling the strings in Las Vegas? I'll be waiting for all your thoughts in the comments. Family, I can't wait to read what you think.